All right. Welcome to Inside the Grind podcast, the podcast for people building real coffee shops. Every episode, we sit down with someone who's deep in the day to day, hiring, fixing, worrying, making hard choices, and still showing up to serve. These are honest stories from founders in the thick of it. No fluff, no ego, just the real grind and what's getting them through. If you're building something on your blog, this one's for you. Brought to you by Coffee Futures Fund. So, when you were sharing the story, it was also about your mission in the next sort of stage in your life and what you want to give back. So, what's driving you today?
Changes a little from day to day, but I think generally, I love coffee. I've worked with coffee for almost 20 years. And when you've worked in anything for a long time, you feel you know it all. You can be a bit cynical. You've seen this, that, and the other before. So there are lots of things I struggle with, but I never actually struggle with the product or the idea of what coffee is to me. That it can be delicious and incredible and exciting and diverse and varied. That's what made me fall in love with coffee. And I think I'm still feeling that on my best days. A lot of that is about stories. So, I'm drinking a cup of coffee right now and it's good. It's not exceptional. I brewed this in like an automated brewer with very little attention because I was getting ready for this podcast. I said it's good and it's tasty. And even the best, most exceptional cup of coffee in the world cost a fortune. Could have been, hand brewed by a producer, right? This was made for me by a coffee producer in front of me. So the emotional, but it's still just black liquid in a cup, right? With a bit of caffeine, probably not enough sugar, physically, whatever, but it tastes sweet and fragrant and interesting. But what makes it really special is all the ideas the stories, the people that I can connect to through coffee. And so sometimes I think I'm in love with the product, and sometimes I think the product is the excuse to connect me to everything. I think you can use coffee to tell so many different kinds of stories or understand so much about the world. If it's global economics, right? You can see it through coffee. If it is small family businesses, you can see those through a lens of coffee. If it's, hereditary traits and botany and biology or physics through roasting, right? Every story coffee can have a way into. And I think if I have a real why or mission, it's that I love those stories and I want to share it. Or, let's move away from coffee. Like I think I'm a curious guy. I think my life is better because I'm curious, but it's kind of pointless unless I get to share it with people. And I think I would like to help people find the joy in some of these simple things. And I would like to share the joy that I find in some of these simple things with other people. And I found ways to do that through coffee, primarily through being a barista. And I found ways to do that within my industry. So I love talking to coffee people about coffee, where we can go really deep. But I also love talking about coffee to people who know next to nothing about it. And if I can make them question it a bit more, or open doors to them questioning it a bit more, that moment is really exciting, which is one of the reasons why I love the cafe. The cafe can be lots of different things to different people. That encompasses, thousands of different businesses. But that moment where somebody tastes something and you get to talk about it is so valuable to the industry. But it's also like those rare moments where you really connect with someone over a cup of coffee are so special and so valuable. I think, financially they can be valuable, but also emotionally. It's those very small moments of connection, particularly with strangers.
You said something which just stuck in my mind. You said, I love the product, or maybe the product is the excuse for so many things that comes along with it. So that's a beautiful statement. And I mean, I can see it. Sometimes you say words, but you can imagine those words in real life. So I can see what you mean by that. On that note, right, when you meet people today, you did mention that you love talking about it. It's not just about financially, but also emotionally being there with people and then talking about our passions. So what are the common things that you're talking about with people today? And when I say people, I am primarily referring to our audience, right, which is emerging coffee shop owners, people who have just started their coffee shop, then the initial phases of getting into the rhythm, learning the ropes and being there, and also while communicating or connecting with the audience, or not audience per se, but the community through the love of coffee and the product. So what are you talking about these days? What are you saying? What are you listening?
I mean, these days in this, let's say over the last 3 months, and I would expect over the next 3 months, when talking about, let's say, emerging business owners in coffee, in cafes, streets, whatever, a lot of it's really difficult right now. The world has gone through a lot of changes over the last 4 or 5 years, and I think we're feeling some of the impacts of those changes. I think where the world is finding its new normal, which includes a lot more new shocks, right? It's not changing, it's not getting easier, which include, current politics and war, COVID, on economies, particularly on the way high streets work and retail business works, on how hospitality works, some of the economics of supply chains and the challenge around that. All of that has made the business that I grew up in, making coffee, buying coffee, brewing coffee, selling it to people, much more difficult. The margins are much tighter than they used to be. And certainly, I think this is not a global truth, but I'd say certainly in like more mature Western global North markets for hospitality and for retail, it is much more expensive to do business. The margins are much tighter than let's say the last 10 years, which were kind of this golden period where, particularly in coffee, but also in other industries, the cost of ingredient was low. The audience was underserved, so the opportunity was big, and there was a growing community opportunity for everyone. So it was fun and it was exciting. It felt fun and it felt exciting, and it felt like it might have felt difficult at the time, but it was relatively easy. Now it's difficult. Now it's a challenging landscape, and it's a hard place to do business. Particularly if you're an existing business with an existing way of doing things. You've got existing staff and real estate and all of these things. It's harder to shift. It is hard to start a new business in this landscape. There are lots more question marks than there used to be, but it's also really exciting because in all these areas where there's challenges, there's opportunities. There's opportunities to do things a little differently, to find the secret code of what success looks like in, let's not say 2025, but like in the second quarter of the 21st century. Right? We know what worked 10, 15 years ago, and that's worked for a long time. It's worked pretty well. We don't know that will continue to work. Maybe it will.
Yeah.
Maybe it will just be it works, but just not quite as profitably as it used to. Not quite, you don't make quite as much money by running a cookie cutter cafe chain as you used to, but maybe there are opportunities to make the same amount of money, better money. Maybe it's not about money. Make a better connection, a business that stands out and has more impact and value on communities, on supply chains, and that everyone gets paid what they should for the work they're doing, right? That's an optimistic idea. Is like when times are tough and things are challenging, there are opportunities to try different things and find new ways of doing business, and maybe they can resonate. So that's the question that I end up talking a lot about with peers, with potential consultancy clients or potential customers or people that are just like in the same field. I don't have the answers. What I do think is the easiest way to succeed is to challenge a few things and then test them based on the things that we know are true, right? So it's not throwing away everything that works. It is, and it's not that every business needs to be completely different, but it is, so what business do you want to build? Okay. And then what's the market like? And then, okay, let's do the work. So like, how much money do you need to do that? Like, what are the costs? What's the margin? Does it still make sense? How do we fine tune it so you still get the unique thing that you're passionate about out of the business while still being able to pay the bills and being able to sustain it?
Makes sense. I'm just thinking about this interestingly second quarter of the century. Well, we are here. So, and I can see that now that you say, yes, the first 25 years are over, things were happening in a particular way. The world was working in a particular way. This will be hugely different from what we have seen the last 25 years. So I am trying to think about Coffee Futures Fund at this point, and I am thinking that we are starting on this journey with this vision to support and uplift emerging coffee shop owners. So today, if you were talking to the same group of people and you were talking about Coffee Futures Fund and how can it support you in your journey to weather this new change in society, new change in technology, the new world, so to speak. So what would you say to them in terms of how can CFF help you, support you, or you should think of CFF as your partner?
So I think business is hard, and anyone setting up a business, you might be doing it with a partner. There might be two or three of you. But fundamentally, most businesses are run by one or two people, and you will bring on staff, you will build a team and do whatever. But there's a lot of pressure on one or two people that are trying to hold it all together. And that is stressful and draining and hard. And you can have total confidence in what you want to build and your idea, but it's a lot easier if you have the support of some other people who understand your industry enough that they can challenge, that they can question, and that they can help you make the most of your idea or your concept or your goal, your dream. Right? Both from a testing perspective, right? So when you're on your own, it's easy to think through a problem and come up with a solution, and it's really hard to question that solution because you've done that work, right? You got there, that was probably the right answer. Let's carry on. And so you need some people to ask why, or what about this, or what happens when this thing doesn't work out? How are we going to deal with it? So having people you trust to challenge you, to coach you. Spend a lot of time in the barista competition field. So, every year building a routine, learning these things and being judged by people, which is, awful. And whenever you set up a business, you're going to be judged, by all your peers, but also all your customers, right? They will decide whether it's worth X amount of money to have this experience or this coffee. The best bit about competition is you very rarely do it alone. Either formally or informally, you have friends helping you along for the ride. You will be coached by your peers, by the people who are willing to judge you or shadow you or do whatever. And that is the most joyful part of the competition experience. It can also be the most joyful part of the business experience when you meet other people, maybe who you don't need to work with every day, right? So you don't need to pay them, who can offer advice and help you be the best that you can be, or help your business be the best it can be. And I think CFF offers that opportunity because there's a group of experienced business leaders with a wealth of experience, but also a range of experience, because that's also important, that will support these new business owners with their best awareness of how to resolve some of the challenges of setting up a business or structure, which is hard when you're doing something for the first time, who will challenge, who will support, who will also just provide, let's say, guidance and support on a journey that can be quite long. And I think, I've very fortunately been in a position where I have worked in a number of businesses with, investors of different kinds, self startups with like a founder who led the way with their own money and took all the risk, or bigger businesses where there's like a family firm putting money in and stuff like that. Investors are hard, but they're also important, right? But investors and money is just one part of it, which most businesses need, and what they should be more selective with their investors, because what you need is care and alignment of values and a broader understanding than you can bring yourself, that external validation or that external critique that you can trust, right? Which also means it can't just be like you pay someone for an hour to look at your business plan and they give you some feedback and they wander off. It's always a long game because things change over time. The needs of the business, the needs of the founder, the individual, the team changes over time. So having somebody who cares about your business succeeding and has the knowledge to help you do that, I think they are really valuable assets for any new business. And in coffee, where it is, in fact, even, and we don't need to do this. I mean, we haven't really spoken about this in some of our conversations about CFF with the broader board and with yourself, but there's a bit of an assumption that we're talking about specialty coffee, about good coffee, right? Whatever that means. And those words are supercharged. Coffee is a passion business, or is often a passion business. Even if, let's say you had all the money of, a sovereign wealth fund behind you and you were completely cold nosed, we're going to do coffee because we've decided it's the opportunity. That you could do anything, right? You're still dealing with passion because you're dealing with passionate customers, and the roast level, whether it's dark or light, or even the quality, the score level of the coffee, that you're going to build a business around cheap Robusta or the highest grade Arabica in the world, right? These are all like, to a degree, aesthetic choices. They're like personal values, and you're hoping that there's a niche of customers that aligns with you, but you can build a business in any of those areas. But ultimately, coffee is something that customers care about. And normally the businesses that succeed are the businesses that also care either about the product or about their customers a lot, And that's maybe not true, but that's something I want to believe in my heart, and I want to make it true, because the people who succeed are the people who.
That's it for this episode of Inside the Grind. If something here helped, make sure to subscribe and pass it to another coffee shop or a friend. We all need each other more than we admit. To learn more or join the community, head to coffeefutures.fun. This movement is just getting started. Until next time, keep growing. Your shop matters more than you know.